Hello everyone, just a quick word from your friendly editor/husband. For all of you who listen to So I'm Watching This Show and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android devices. I use the app and love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure you set So I'm Watching the Show as a favorite so you don't miss any new episodes. Again, the app is Podcast Republic, available on your Android device. Thanks!
Oh, I actually do not have anything. I can just sing Sufjan Stevens to you for 20 seconds.
I'm good, I think.
All things go, all things grow. You recreate. How does it go? You
I don't
come
know.
and take me. You recreate me. Something like that. I don't know. I groaned.
I have literally no idea. I can't understand him anyway.
I groaned when the song started playing, and then I forgot how good that song is.
It's so good. It's really, really good.
It's like cue the fall of Sufjan Stevens for me.
Yeah.
As in the season, but maybe also the downfall. We'll have to see.
Sure, both. Either way works. It's fine.
Hello, everybody. I am Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show. And on today's episode, we're going to have it's going to be so long, you won't believe how long it is. It's going to be a long conversation about...
You just jinxed us. We're going to be done in 15 minutes and not have anything else to talk about.
Well, I'm not allowed to say I don't know how long it's going to be, so I'm like, strap in, because it's going to blow your tits clean off.
Clean off.
I want that trophy. I don't know what that's from. They say it like 200 times in the trailer, but yeah, because it doesn't happen in the show. It never did, and I thought it was maybe in the song, and I looked for it, but for like the month before this show came out, anytime like it came up, I was just like, I want that trophy.
I want to win. I want that trophy.
We watched The Politician on Netflix, and more recently we've been doing sort of like episodic coverage, and we discussed doing that with this, and because of several factors, including but not limited to timing, we decided to just go ahead and talk about when it was over.
Mm-hmm. I think, honestly, my biggest reasoning was we're already covering 2 Ryan Murphy shows episodically for the Patreon, and I don't have it in me right now to do 3 at a time.
to have an in-depth episodic, like, charting our confusion as to why the story is being told in the manner.
I really wanted to just, like, start to finish be able to talk about the show as a whole, and I think I was right.
I think we could have checked in a couple places, but yeah, ultimately, I feel pretty good about this.
Knowing where it ended more than if we had checked in.
Well, and also it ended twice, but...
Yeah, it did. It really did. I just didn't know this was going to have a second season. I thought this was going to be another, like, limited series thing, but no, it's got picked up for a season 2.
I think it was picked up for 2 seasons.
Oh, okay.
Like, it had an early 2, but I don't know if that means that 2 is the end. But I know it had, because Ben Platt said on Armchair Expert that they already had season 2, and that was in, like, March of this year.
Oh, shit, okay.
I honestly wish I took better notes. I really didn't take any notes. I mean, I ended up, by the time we got to, like, episode 4, I was like, I need to write down a couple talking points, just how I work, and there was a handful of things that I thought were really funny or interesting, and so I, like, wrote them down so I could remember, and it's probably for the best, because God knows, I mean, the story moves at such a breakneck pace that... Yeah. It, like... do we want to go through our usual Ryan Murphy shebang? I guess we could do a condensed version.
I didn't have as big a problem with the normal Ryan Murphy shebang as usual in this. I think this was a lot more of a finite and a cohesive story where, like, there was definitely stuff that was, like, all over the place, but it all strung together to me.
It was certainly capable of being tied together. I don't know that it all felt organic at every single point.
No. I mean, I think that's part of the appeal of Ryan Murphy is that it's very inorganic a lot of the time. And I tend to kind of like that because these people don't talk how real people talk. They don't act like real people talk or act. They have gobs and gobs and gobs of money. I mean, the surreality of it is part of the appeal. And so while everything doesn't hang together, there was nothing happening and no stories that, like, nothing stuck out like a really sore thumb to me. None of the plot lines.
If anything did, it would have been Infinity and Dusty. But
yeah, but that was so
funny. It was so good.
It was so funny, and they kept Infinity on the like fringes of the inner circle enough that it all felt fine. And having a Munchausen by proxy Gypsy Rose type of story involved in this universe felt right.
Which this has been a solid year for Munchausen by proxy stories. We've gotten we've gotten a lot, but I did want to say about Ryan Murphy before we move into the discussion that I have really come to sort of a conclusion that, at least for me, Ryan Murphy, it's not quite the whole is worth more than the sum of its parts, because each part is usually pretty spectacular, but it's more of a, like, I can't see the forest for the trees while I'm in it. Like, I cannot comprehend even what it's about while it's happening. And so it's like, I sort of have to get through the whole thing, and a lot of times even put some distance in between it and me. Yeah. And sort of like re-edit it in my mind and decide whether or not I liked it or not. And because it's like, I was enjoying this on a word I use a lot is amusing. And I mean that a little bit backhanded. I mean it kind of like in a Caligula type way. Sure. And so I was amused through most of this. But it was like front loaded and then back in the back when I was really enjoying it. In the middle, I got kind of confused and I sort of glazed over.
That's fair. I think the middle is a little. I mean, I really hesitate to be like, this could have been 6 episodes, but like this could have maybe been 6 episodes, because the middle did, go round and round and round a little more than it could have. But I do think pretty much everything paid off. In a way that satisfied me, at least. Yeah,
and also in a way I wasn't expecting.
Also, yes.
By the end, I was expecting it to be way messier and way more open-ended.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it really stuck the landing, in my opinion, which is an unusual thing to say about a Ryan Murphy show.
Something makes me feel like Brad might have been more at the helm with this one.
I agree with that. And I also, part of me feels that maybe Gwyneth had a little bit of say behind the scenes because of Brad.
Well, I don't know about that, but I wrote down several talking points, and of course she was one of them, so we can start with her. But we're both big fans of hers.
Oh yeah, from way back. I've loved her as long as I've known who she was. My beef with Gwyneth Paltrow is that I don't think she deserved the Oscar for the movie she got it for. Not that she doesn't deserve one. I've always thought she was great.
People don't like her. A lot of people don't like her very passionately. And for a brief window of time, I fell into that category. And then she so completely won me over with Pepper Potts. And then a handful of the members, she had that like image makeover, and she went on Glee and did the country movie and stuff. And so.
Well, she also, all of her press with Robert Downey Jr. was always so good.
And ever since then, I've actually kind of just adored her. And I don't fully understand why people feel so negatively towards her. Because I think the worst that can be said about her is she's obnoxious or out of touch. And as I've said several times, I'm not mad at the rich white lady for being out of touch. It checks, like it feels.
Especially because she's not being out of touch in a damaging way. In my opinion, I guess. Some people think goop is damaging, but like regular people can't afford goop anyway.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, if rich people want to spend like $700 on a vagina egg, I'm kind of for it. I'm like, I don't know. And frankly, because she gets lumped in with like as like a snake oil salesperson or whatever. And I think what she does is a little bit different, because she's not, to my understanding, she's not offering catch-all cures, like medical
she's
cures.
Not offering medical advice.
It's more like, and she goes holistic, but I'm kind of holistic myself. I mean, my mom always was like, you know, she never discounted Eastern medicine and stuff, and it was like a combination of the two. And I mean, hey, some people swear by acupuncture and stuff. And so it's like, and again, she's scamming people who can afford it. Like, I mean, she's...
Yeah, they can afford to be scammed. It's fine. Yeah.
And I also think she's so completely transparent. She's so upfront with it. And I think she speaks so passionately and eloquently about it. And again, I mean, I think she has such a phenomenal sense of humor about it that I really think it should buy her back more credibility than it does. And Agreed. I don't know, maybe because she's a woman, we're just not gonna...
Well, we are.
Well, yeah, but... I don't get it. And frankly, I think she was phenomenal in this show. And she wasn't doing really anything challenging. Like, she wasn't acting, but I
disagree.
Oh, okay.
I disagree because she was doing Margot Tenenbaum from the Royal Tenenbaums. That's what she was doing with like an ounce more emotion into it. And honestly, that's hard. And that movie was the first time where I was like, oh, Gwyneth Paltrow is more than just a pretty lady.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think she did a phenomenal job in this show. And I was like captivated by her and her wardrobe every single time she was on camera.
They even made a caftan joke in the show.
Yeah, they sure did. My favorite thing I've read about this show was from... it was actually Linda a pull quote that somebody else pulled from Linda Holmes, where she said she's not always wearing a caftan, but even when she's not, you get the sense of a caftan. And I couldn't agree more. It was just that like red linen thing. I was going to say mine was the head to toe
red number with the hat.
Unbelievable. Yeah, like floor length red linen gown to garden in. Like, it was incredible. I don't know what to say about it.
Handmaiden, but make it fashion. Here's what I meant when I was like, she wasn't necessarily acting, is I think that the part, I think it was quasi-autobiographical. I think that Brad Falchuk wrote it for her, sort of about her. Like, I think this was a take on her. And I think that like very nurturing, like the kind part of her, I think she's really like that. It's like, I was about to go on a tangent. I was going to bring up Marie Antoinette, and we don't need to do that, but...
Maybe not.
I think she's great, and I thought she was great in this, and I thought she was such a necessary, like, positive and sensitive point, because this show was full of characters, and the characters
mostly narcissistic characters.
Yeah, the characters ran the gamut, and it's not that they were all bad, they weren't, and actually there's a lot to be discussed about that. But there were like two good characters in the whole show, and it was Georgina and River.
Yeah, man. Pouring out for River. That is like, it feels like such a waste to me.
It did too.
He's so beautiful, and he's so pure. And I said it when we were watching it the other day, but like, he, for me, is like if Henry Cavill had stopped lifting weights and like wasn't a douchebag. He looks like Superman.
I like have my hands pressed against my face. He was so...
I know, he's so pretty.
And he was so sweet. And it was so like this. I feel like this is my Twilight. Like this was my Edward. Like,
oh, nice.
and frankly, I think Disney needs to cast him as Prince Eric, but...
Ooh. Well, we don't have Harry Styles, do we?
Well, we don't know. At this point, I'll be surprised if the movie's even happening. They've been talking about it for 6 goddamn years.
I agree.
There's still time to fire, what's his name? The director.
Oh, Rob Marshall?
Yeah, there's still time to fire Rob Marshall and hire Kenneth Branagh. I'm pushing
True
that.
Story.
But no, he like showed up, and I kind of figured it's so funny because I do love how deliriously queer every Ryan Murphy thing is.
Oh,
but it always is kind of like jarring at first. I do spend the first, 20 minutes or so sort of like sneering at it. I'm like, oh God, this again.
Well, it is. There's so much of it that's like sort of eye-rolly. Like when they first put Sky on River's ticket, and it's like the first jet black non-binary or whatever, and I just was like, okay, Ryan Murphy, like we get it. And then it just keeps going, and it is nice that his shows like relatively live outside of a homophobic place, relatively, but it is still like really. You're right. At first, it's very like I get it. I see where you're going.
It feels pandering to me to an extent.
Pandering.
But also, I'm like, it's a demographic that could serve to be pandered to occasionally. Like, we don't get a lot of it, so why not? And also, you can criticize a lot about Ryan Murphy Productions, but he does put his money where his mouth is in terms of visibility and diversity and stuff. I mean,
absolutely.
There are all kinds of characters that had no real reason to be to be different, other than they just were. And the world's that way, and it is nice to see it represented and oftentimes represented very matter-of-factly. And I wasn't done with River, but I did want to go on this tangent where this show was giving me a lot of vibes that the show Heathers tried to do last year. And we don't really think Heathers failed, but it was a very brazen take on that. And it's like, the criticism with Heathers was that it was mocking, not even millennials at this point. We're getting into Gen Z, but
Gen Z, yeah.
It's mocking the like uber conscious, politically correct, social justice stuff, and people felt like it was an attack on those things. And we didn't really feel that way, because even though those things in and of themselves are good and we need more of that, within that world, it can become toxic and cutthroat, and there's a lot of virtue signaling and stuff. And so it's like, there really fast it gets there too. There is a knife's edge that you walk. And so I thought that Heathers was really attempting to skewer that. And like I said, maybe it was too blunt. Maybe it was too brazen. Maybe it was too much. And maybe the timing wasn't just right. And I would also argue that we had weird behind the scenes stuff because we had been following Price, the writers. We had who was one of the two of the writers at least. And so we knew exactly what they were shooting for. And I just think the public didn't understand. Well, and we also watched it and the public didn't. And we watched it. I mean, the pilot episode was a little bit rough and nobody watched it. I do think they went at it in like maybe a little bit too caustic of a manner where like, in my opinion, for the most part, most Ryan Murphy shows that aren't American Horror Story have like a beating heart at the center of them where you understand that even though the characters are often terrible, they are... the majority of them have some kind of moral center. Yes, and also, I mean, that's realistic. Most people cannot be all things to all people, and especially when you're young, you don't know. I feel like that beating heart was missing from Heathers. Yeah. And I think this did a lot of the stuff Heathers was trying to do, but this succeeded at it more. For instance, there was another, because we just saw this joke in Happy Death Day, and it landed much harder for me in Happy Death Day, but it was someone mocking someone who was deaf. Yeah. And it was very rude, but it was very funny in Happy Death Day. And they do it in this show, and it was just sort of whatever. And I guess my point, and we don't really need to go on about Heathers because we're not talking about Heathers, but my point is that like that was but one of maybe 3 rude jokes in that episode, where Heathers was very like 22 of those types of jokes. 100%. And I think it's not, I don't think we need to stop comparing it to Heathers because they are absolutely bedfellows. Bedfellows for sure. There is a kinship between the two shows. But I think that is the difference. Is it was very abrasive and it was very harsh and it was very on the cutting edge kind of, and
and this was like a lot tamer all around, but while still skewering those same ideals.
But and also still sharp. It was still prickly. There was plenty to kind of okay.
For sure. There was tons of prickly stuff. Tons of prickly characters, tons of prickly stuff. Absolutely.
Back to River, I cannot believe I fell so hook, line, and sinker. And I cannot believe...
Yes, you can. I can.
Oh, well, he seems like one of the ones that I would be like weirdly blasé about. Like, he seems like one of the ones I'd be like, he was too pretty. You know what I mean? Like Matt
he's
Bomer.
Not too pretty.
Okay.
No, he's right up your alley.
Sometimes those types, I'm kind of like, And just the dynamic, it like, okay. I mean, I've talked about this a lot. If you're a regular listener, you would know, but like, nowhere near this scenario happened to me, but I had similar type scenarios growing up when I was in high school. And in some ways, I found Peyton to be quasi-relatable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I found Peyton to be quasi-relatable at times. I mean, I think that's part of the character, and I think it's absolutely part of Ben Platt's performance, which, by the way, was chef's kiss amazing the entire time.
I thought it was so good, too. I saw a couple of things said that he should stick to theater, and I was like...
No. I mean, please do more theater, but no. He's so good on camera, I think. There was so much nuance.
Mm-hmm. I had mentioned this to you before, but I was going to say it again, that he's really, really good crier because he learned how to for Dear Evan Hansen. And so it's like he can essentially kind of turn it on. He knows how to do it from like a technical sense. And it was really funny.
You said he could make himself do it physically, right?
Yeah.
He can physically manifest the tears so he doesn't have to be like emotional about it and doesn't affect his singing voice.
It started that way, but he learned over time how to do it. And they were talking about, because it's gross, but he was very matter of fact about it on Armchair Expert. Yeah. Where he was like, it's hard to sing while crying because crying dislodges mucus. And he was like, but if you know what you're doing, it's sort of like continual breathing and stuff. You can learn how. And he was like, and actually you can hit notes. Because it's like when you dislodge mucus from your nasal cavities, it like gives you other notes. It gives you other range and stuff. And so he just like doing Evan Hansen for however long, because when he started off, they were doing 8 shows a week and it was dangerous. It like was too trying. He like blew his voice out several times. And so from now on, they only do the show 6 times a week.
Oh, nice.
Because it's like, you can't do that to a matinee and an evening.
An evening show. Like a matinee and an evening on Saturday and Sunday? Absolutely not.
I thought he was great too. I was a little bit unsure of if he was prepared for, a starring vehicle, and if this were, network TV.
I don't know. It weirdly felt exactly perfect to me.
Well, it did. In seeing it, I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And he was backed up by all kinds of, interesting newcomers and icons. My God, it just like, because I had even forgot. I was at a point where I had even forgotten about Judith Light and Bette Midler.
I had totally forgotten about them because I kept thinking Sarah Paulson was in this for some reason.
You did say that, and I was like, I don't think so. Was it Judith Light you were thinking of?
No, I think I was thinking about the Goldfinch.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know she's in that. And so I was like, isn't she like a tacky lady? I was like, maybe she's his birth mom.
Yeah, that's
I thought that's where we were going, and we didn't end up going there.
Well, I kind of feel like it's going to be Judith Light, right?
I don't think so. So that's what I thought at first until that other man came in and it turned out they were in a throuple. I think that's the extent of the Judith Light scandal. We can go back and talk about the election, which ended in episode 4.
No, it didn't. It was
episode 5 then.
It was 6 because 5 was brilliant because 5 was about...
5 was brilliant.
Hold on. I wrote his name down. I couldn't remember. Elliot Beecham.
Elliot.
Poor Elliot Beecham. I was texting Rachel.
That was hilarious.
I was texting Rachel and I was like, I swear to God, I was like, this kid is going to shoot up the school and I'm going to be on his side.
Yeah, right?
He just wanted to masturbate and eat a turkey sandwich. And nobody would let him.
It was unbelievable.
It was so bleak, but also like I was having a similar thing with this show that I was The Society on Netflix, where I was like, I mean, sure, I understand the title because he wants to be a politician, so that makes sense. And then it was, again, about halfway through where I was like, oh, that's why it's called that. Because the show was weirdly about politics in a way that I wasn't, I feel like it wasn't wearing on its sleeve. Maybe it was, I don't know. But it took me a while to be like, oh, this is why I don't like politics. It's all too fake and too calculated. And nobody, well, and it's not even that I don't like, because it's not even that I don't like politicians. It's like, I can't handle politics.
You said it's all fake and calculated, but it's like, it's that, but it's also all too real at the same time. Like, it's too fake and it's too real, and there's no middle ground, and the consequences are both staggering and they're like, whose line is it anyway, where it doesn't matter at all. It's like, it's such a catch-22 and such a weird paradox that all politics is like that. It drives me insane. And the fact, like, these kids were taking this high school student body president thing so seriously.
But it's true.
This show is also, well, it's true to a point, but like, this show is also very close bedfellows with the movie Election with Reese Witherspoon, because of how single-minded he is about getting to where he needs to be. And that's what frustrates me about politics, is how real and fake it is at the same time, where you just can't, as a regular person, you can't get a handle on anything.
Because we feel entitled to every single detail of these people's lives. And the thing is, and you're never allowed to make a mistake. And literally everybody has made dozens of mistakes. And also, I don't want to know them. I don't want to know everybody's deepest, darkest, moments. I don't feel privy to them. I don't want to know them. I don't know how we would live. But back to them taking it that seriously. I mean, it is, and certainly in this day and age, it's that serious. I mean, look back at the Kavanaugh trial. It's like, and by no means is this me having sympathy for Kavanaugh, but my point is that everything you do can be publicly tried.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely understand that. My point was just arguing that, a high school student body, in the scheme of things, doesn't actually mean anything.
Well, no, although...
And they are taking it seriously like an actual presidential race.
But he did say that all of those, Bush were...
His arguments were sound, but I'm just saying.
And, I mean, the thing with him being adopted, it's like that sort of makes sense with why he wants so badly to be president, is because that's the ultimate, it's like for someone who may not have felt wanted, it's like that's the ultimate feeling of
Absolutely.
being chosen.
I definitely agree. Well, and I think that goes into the, the episode 5 stuff where he finds out that, after Astrid left the election, he finds out that she actually won. He didn't win the election, but he ended up being unopposed, so he got the presidency. I mean,
it wasn't the
you're
same.
right. In that sense, that's a blow that he did not see coming.
Well, and I saw a lot of talk about, him being a gray or, a morally ambiguous character, and he definitely said and did things that were bad or questionable, but he actually seemed like he meant so much of what he was saying, and he cared about so much of what he was doing. And I guess that's what all the stuff with River was a manifestation of that. It's like, oh God, the scene with him in heaven. In the
in between space, in kind of in the Dumbledore train station.
Yeah. I was almost crying for real. And it's the kind of stuff that can be oh, don't get the wrong message from this, but also I'm an adult and I'm not looking at Ryan Murphy Netflix shows to form my life. But because basically River was kind of I was too pure to live, so I had to die to make your life better. It was some very 13 reasons why shit, but it was so romantic in this old world way.
Mm-hmm.
I was finding the show ridiculous because it is. I'm not discussing that or arguing that, but I was finding the show ridiculous, and I did scoff at it a couple of times, and then I thought, you know what? Actually, if they just changed all the names and threw this back in time 400 years, this would be scholarly. This would be Shakespeare.
For sure. I have never argued that Ryan Murphy is not a storytelling talent. He's very good at storytelling. That's absolutely true. And I was also going to say, what you were talking about with how Peyton was like a gray character or whatever, I do think he was, but I think the part that stood out to me the most was when the girl who was on his team, McAfee, when she went to Sky and was like, I don't want to be on your campaign or whatever, or like involved with you anymore because you don't have what Peyton has, which is that he genuinely wants to help people and you just want like power, kind of. And I think that that was like that was like a sticking point for me, because I was like, even though, yes, he's done some slightly underhanded things, you can tell that he does genuinely want to help people and he believes the things he's saying, even if the emotion isn't necessarily there, which he talked about in the early episodes. He still means it. Just because he doesn't 100% feel it, I think he still wants things to be better for people who can feel it.
We've talked about this before, especially when we talk about like killers and stuff. And I was like, are all like sociopaths or psychos or whatever term you want to use? I was like, do they always end up having to be killers? And you were like, I don't know, I guess not. And so this seems like someone who had all the right combinations to be like evil, and instead he kept choosing to do good. It was, I don't know.
I think sociopaths and psychopaths always have a choice to not follow through, I would assume. But
I don't remember, we talked about it recently.
Well, we talked about it in the Society.
Okay, yeah.
We were talking about, what's his face?
Campbell.
Shit, what's his name? Campbell. I wouldn't call Peyton a sociopath. I would call his brothers sociopaths.
I was going to say, do we want to talk about Martin and Luther?
Hobart, yeah.
Although, even with him, Martin seemed to be a little bit better than Luther.
Yeah, because one of them was like, I don't think I can smother Dad. And I just was like, Jesus.
But even when Gwyneth Paltrow was like talking to them, she was like, Martin, even you want this? And he was kind of like, I don't know.
I guess.
Like, it was really weird. It was really funny. It was really weird. That was the other thing with Gwyneth Paltrow, because she was very, like I said, she was very gentle, and it wasn't like a challenging role is what I had said. But she had several lines that she did just deliver so effortlessly about how everyone she tries to break up with jumps out of a window. And then, like,
oh my God.
And then the stuff with Martina Navratilova where she was like, please don't kill yourself. And like,
okay, is she like friends with Ryan Murphy? Like, how did she get in this show? That
She's done stuff before. She was on Will and Grace. She was one of Karen's ex-lovers. She's weirdly game for some of this stuff.
It is just like such a weirdly perfect role for her to be like the stable hand that falls in love with Gwyneth Paltrow's like rich, dissatisfied wife. I don't know. That was weirdly like the cherry on top of the show for me, was just that like Martina Navratilova just showed up like 4 times. It was amazing. I just didn't even know what to say after that.
Speaking of which, January Jones was in this. You know what? I think January Jones is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I tweeted about that today.
That's been an ongoing conversation we've had. There was a very specific reaction she had when she was talking to Astrid in like the second episode. And the way she did it, I feel like she looked to the side in a weird way, but whatever it was funny. And I kind of wanted her to go with Astrid when Astrid like ran away to New York the second time.
Well, I think it's important that Astrid said no.
Yeah.
But like character-wise, it's important that Astrid said no, and they didn't have this like great mom-daughter bonding thing. But I think she'll be in season 2, obviously, or I hope at least, because I also love January Jones and have done so since she was in Love Actually. And I understand, because we've had this conversation a couple of times where you think that she's sort of a one-trick pony, or you did, I guess. And I don't disagree, but I like her so much, and I think definitely part of it is just that she's, like, beautiful, and part of it is because she was so good on Mad Men, but I was like, I just love her, and I think in real life she's a stone-cold bitch, and I think she does have a very specific lane for her acting talent, but she dominates that lane.
She doesn't get involved places that she doesn't belong.
Exactly. She's like a cold, icy, rich wife, and I think that in order to do that kind of role justice, you have to be a certain kind of actress. And I think it goes the same for Gwyneth Paltrow. And it's not to say that you need to have more depth than that. I just think they're both so good at what they do, and they don't try to extend beyond their reach, which would be embarrassing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Also, Dylan McDermott was
Oh my god.
when
He's such a good asshole.
when she turned him in, and he was just like, "I've never been prouder of you."
Never been more proud. Amazing. It was amazing.
Well, and also the scene again with January Jones where they were talking to the detective, and January Jones is like, "He wants to fuck our daughter, and he's mad that I won't let him," or something. It was
amazing, and he just was like, "Jesus Christ."
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. We didn't talk a ton about Infinity and Dusty.
I mean, I knew from the beginning. The minute she was on screen, I was like, "Oh, this is like a Gypsy Rose situation." I was like, "This is Munchausen by proxy for sure." And it went on long enough that I was like, maybe it's not. But then as soon as I thought that, we started getting talk about how she wasn't really sick. And so I was like, okay, fine. I will say that I think Zoe Deutsch is great, and her whole performance with this sort of wide-eyed naivete that also has like a steel backbone of deep knowledge running through it was hilarious. And obviously, I mean, we have sung Jessica Lange's praises to the rafters many times on this podcast already, but she was just amazing at every turn. The way that she would fly off the handle whenever anybody would talk about Infinity's illness, just to move suspicion away or whatever, was so good. I can't explain the feelings I was feeling every time that Jessica Lange was flying off the handle at the hospital staff. For
a long time, I had liked the trailer better than what the show was. And so I had to divorce my expectations of the trailer away from it. But I think the way the trailer was edited, the music they used, the sound bites they used, it was so funny out of context. Everything was just so good. And that was the moment that sold me on the show, where I was like, I have got to watch the show. And it was when Jessica Lange was sitting down with Ricardo, and he was like,
"You think I should kill him?"
What? Yes, I do.
Yes.
The way she just did it. And also, I think, and I don't know why, I do not know why, but I think the funniest part in the entire season was when Infinity, towards the end, when she was freaking out about wanting to go to Paris, and she wanted to eat at the restaurant from Ratatouille, and Jessica Lange, Dusty, was just so exasperated. And she just
That's an animated film, Infinity, the rats don't really cook!
But it was almost like she was pleading with her. She was like, "You have got to know this." and it was this moment where she was glimpsed, she was reaping what she sowed. And it was I don't know. It was so good. And just all of their stuff. Ricardo was also really great in a way that I don't have a lot to say about him. But
he really, I have never seen that guy before, I don't think, which a lot of the high school students are pretty fresh faces, which I really appreciated given the weight of talent on the bench besides them. But he was so interesting, because that's the other thing that really tipped me off to the Gypsy Rose thing, because she had a boyfriend like that, and they conspired to kill her grandmother in the real story, the real Gypsy Rose story. So I was like, oh God. So the whole time I was waiting for Jessica Lange to get murdered, and it's didn't end up happening. But I thought he was so much fun and so great and so stupid.
But it's stupid like a fox?
Astrid, a little bit stupid like a
his
fox.
whole
And so when
Philoctetes
Astrid
thing?
kidnapped him, yeah, oh my God. The whole thing. I don't know. When Astrid took him to New York and sort of coerced him into staying with her so they could keep eating at chain restaurants. That was Astrid's whole Gone Girl thing, I think, was one of the highlights of this show for me, where she just was like, I'm so dissatisfied with my rich girl life. All I want to do is eat a Bubba Gump shrimp in Times Square. I lost it when they were doing that.
I do have to note that this show has a fundamental misunderstanding as to what Olive Garden is. But
what do you mean? Oh, was it Olive Garden? I thought it was just an Italian buffet.
It was Olive Garden. They kept saying it. And I was like, Olive Garden is not it's like the Cheesecake Factory on Big Bang Theory. And I was like, that is not how that works.
That's not the Cheesecake Factory. Okay.
I was like, it has a very distinct look to it. But anyways,
definitely.
yeah. Astrid was interesting. I am glad for her sake and several other characters' sake that there is going to be a second season and they are going to be in it. She had a lot of material, and we definitely did get glimpses into her, but there was a part of me where it's like, I'm like, so is she the bad guy? Like, and not to say that there needed to be a clear-cut one, but by the middle of the show, I was very kind of like, there is a lot of just ambiguous people. Did you like notice that, or did you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree that there's a lot of ambiguous people, but I would only argue that there are a lot of ambiguous people in real life, and I think we had enough people that were either definitely good or definitely bad that I was fine with a lot more of the grayness. And also, the final episode really did a lot for me, because when it was very season finale of season 1 of Gossip Girl, when they all sort of came back together in the final episode to help Peyton. I liked that a lot, where it's like they weren't really friends and they weren't really allies, but they literally all were like, let's do it. Let's get together. Let's do it. They were all like, yeah, I want in on this. And so I agree with you that I think Astrid is going to have more in a season 2, but also this for me was I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, and I would argue that Lucy Boynton was like the best part of it. And so this was very vindicating for me, knowing that she can do, she's Astrid. And so like knowing that she can do more than one thing, I was like, oh, sweet. I was like, I feel good keeping her around.
Do you know who? Yeah, totally. And I was going to say, do you know who I actually really liked that caught me off guard by the end was Emily?
Which one's Emily?
That's not her name.
Alice. Yeah. I liked Alice a lot at the end, yeah.
She was just sort of plain and boring to me in the beginning. And then
I think that was by design, because she was just supposed to be like a vapid politician's wife.
And also, if this came out 10 years ago, it would have been Chloe Sevigny.
100%.
I just couldn't stop seeing Chloe Sevigny.
I see it. Well, it was all very...
Especially I'm a stone-cold bitch with ice water in my veins.
Yeah, I sort of felt like maybe Gwyneth took her under her wing, because she also had a very Margot Tenenbaum feel to her, with like the blonde bob and the very modulated way of speaking, and like the very limited emotional range, at least until the last 2 episodes. That all felt very, very similar to me. So I was like, I wonder if she like got tips on how to act that way. But I thought she was great too. And she took me a little bit by surprise too. But every time she said something with no tone, or like all the tone modulation and no emotion in her voice, I laughed every single time, because she was so funny.
And she was such the perfect first lady. Like, she was such the role she was playing. She understood the and it was so interesting, because like the whole thing in it's the first or second episode, I think it might even be the first episode, where she comes up with a plan to dump him, and she tells him that he has to look back, and then he doesn't. I was kind of like, I was shocked, and then I was kind of like not. I was like, oh, I'm surprised that I'm surprised. And then I was like, oh, we're just actually not going to touch on that. And I love that they waited until the very last episode to bring it back up. And then that was the crux. And even him, when she was like, why did you do it? I kept waiting. He didn't answer her. And I was like, he did it because he knew that he could. That's why he did it, is because he knew that he could. And that is why they don't work.
I believe his answer too, though, where he was like, actually, now I totally forget what he said. I remember believing it.
No, he said your plan was working. He was like, your plan was working.
Yes.
Why would, blah, blah. No, she couldn't have been clearer. And he did it because he knew that he could.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And he can love her and she can love him, but they are not good together. He will never choose her. And it's like, it makes her a tragic, it makes her a tragic character in my mind, because she will always choose him.
I can agree with that. I guess I can agree with him most of the way. I'm not 100% sure if you're right how it stands right now, because he changed. Like, I think at the end of season 1, he's a different person than he was at the beginning of season 1. I think Gwyneth Paltrow was right. I think Georgina was right when she said, now you know this emptiness, you know what loss feels like. It's different now. I agree with that.
But I don't think different doesn't mean fixed.
I don't think it means fixed, but I think there is a path forward for him to choose her if that's what he feels like.
And he's not going to feel it,
has,
though.
well, sure,
that's not the
he
show.
would have to make that choice. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Sky got on my nerves a lot. Although I will say that my single favorite thing about her and her plot was just the, like, YOLO at the end, like, the bitches be crazy, and they just kind of shrugged, and, like, that kind of, I was, like, completely on board again.
When she was like, sorry I tried to poison you, and he was like, bygones!
Yeah, and she was like, I got a good lawyer, and it just seemed kind of like, I mean, hey, you know what I mean? Like, you know where you stand. What, is she gonna try and kill you again? You know, like...
Yeah, exactly. You already tried this once, I don't think it's gonna work.
And I thought McAfee was really annoying at first, but then I also ended up really liking her as it went on.
Yeah, she was one of my favorites, absolutely.
There were a lot of characters considering, well, there was a lot of story, but
yeah,
we could definitely stand to get to know some of them a little bit more next season. So
absolutely.
I guess that does bring us to the final episode. Episode 7 ends up to and including with Sufjan Stevens. All things go, all things grow. And I was like, how is there another episode? And you're like, it's fine, you'll love it. And I was like, okay. And I feel like they basically took the first episode of season 2 and tacked it on. And I think that's ultimately a good idea.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't totally agree with that assessment, because I think if it had ended at the end of episode 7, I would have been with you, where it's like, how on earth, who gives a shit about a season 2? The fact that we've got this taste of what season 2 is going to be like, I think that was important.
Yeah, so it's like when you're reading like a YA series and they include the first 3 chapters of the next book at the end of the...
Sure, okay. I'll agree with that for sure.
So, and I think I enjoyed it better thinking about it as established season 1 canon, because if we came back a year and a half later to that as a first episode, we'd be like, what the fuck show is this? I would have been
infuriated. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would have been like, I love Judith Light and Bette Midler, but what the fuck are you doing?
And also, by endearing us to Judith Light and Bette Midler first, I mean, I guess technically we had the scene with Peyton in the bar, but then we go to them, and there was a part of me where it was like, after 10 minutes, I was like, who are these broads? And that final episode was introducing us to hot guy after hot guy after hot guy. I tell you, did you notice that?
Which guys? I didn't notice a ton of hot guys.
The Texas senator and...
Oh, yeah, the Texas senator was hot.
Thad, and then Judith Light
Thad
and
was pretty hot too.
Her throuple, her husbands, and it's just
okay,
like...
all right, fair enough. I withdraw. I agree.
It's so funny because we've talked about this on the podcast. You know, I'm 34, you're 33, but we're the same age.
I'll be 34 in 2 months.
I don't feel old. Like, I still feel like a young person in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But I'll revert back to something like, you know, a high school show. And I'll be like, I mean, they're cute, but they don't really do anything for me. And then, like, a 40-year-old man enters, and I'm like, bingo, ding dong, hello.
Yep.
Like, so I'm like, oh, I'm not 20 anymore. That's what's happening. Like, I'm not 17 anymore. Right. And so, because whoever that, like, Texas politician dude was with the chin and oh, man.
Honestly, his Texas accent was doing it for me more than anything.
Oh my God. And it just like, it was
a good time.
And the Judith Light, that stuff was so funny. And again, I rolled my eyes when the other guy walked out. But then I was kind of like, you know what? Fuck it. It's fun.
Yeah.
And that woman is stunning. Like when she had the scene in her boudoir and like fluffed her hair back, it just, I don't know what it is about some people where they just never lose it. Like, never.
Yeah.
Jessica Lange's one of them, but... I
was going to say, I would argue Jessica Lange is in that same boat.
But, man, yeah, that was just so crazy, their throuple. And what the fuck was Bette Midler's name?
Hadassah. I think it's
Gold.
A Hebrew name.
Yeah, Hadassah Gold. That was so great. That's the assumption that is going to be season 2. And basically, if you're listening to this for the plot, Judith Light is a like New York senator.
She's a New York State senator.
And she was asked by the Texan to be her...
The Texas U.S. senator.
Yeah, to be his running mate for president. And then Peyton and them are going to challenge her state seat.
Yeah.
Because
and
they think it's...
the dirt they've got is that she's in a throuple.
Mm-hmm. And they think she's gotten complacent. It's not really it's not like a moral vendetta or anything.
Complacent. We like saw tons of evidence of her complacency.
I laughed out loud when Hadassah said to McAfee, "Can you use Windows 99?"
Well, that was the other woman, the one that was showing her around. It wasn't Hadassah. It was the one from
Gabby Hoffman.
From Feud.
Yeah, or her name's not Gabby Hoffman. What is her name?
Yeah. I don't know her name, but she was Jessica Lange's maid in Feud. Yeah.
Now I need
she
to know,
was like, "Do you know how to use Windows 99?" And she was like, "No." And she goes, "You'll be fine. It's just like Windows 95."
And McAfee is presumably named after that software, but
What?
Yeah, Jackie Hoffman. Okay.
Jackie Hoffman. Well, you said Gabby first,
Hoffman.
didn't you?
Okay, Jackie Hoffman. I was kind of right. I knew what I was talking about. All in all, I really liked it. And especially, it's funny because I heard a lot of scuttlebutt that it falls apart at the end. And if anything, I thought it got stronger. I thought it came together in the end.
I think it got stronger too. I will admit there was one moment where I was like, this show is going to absolutely fall apart, like the end of almost every season of American Horror Story, isn't it? And then it actually surprised me and went the other way. And I agree with you. I think it ended stronger than it was in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I think it ended stronger than where I thought it was going to, based on what happened in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Because it looked like it was spinning out of control, and then it ended up bringing itself all the way back around. And I enjoyed it. I was really a fan of it the whole time. I was laughing out loud in every episode. I mean, it was funny. It was like emotional when it needed to be. I thought the characters all worked well together. I thought nobody embarrassed themselves acting wise, which was, I think, impressive given how many newcomers there were, especially going up against these really seasoned actors like Gwyneth Paltrow and Dylan McDermott and Jessica Lange and even Ben Platt, who hasn't done a ton of like TV and movies but has done a shitload of theater. I mean, that's impressive to go up against those people and not feel the divide. Mm-hmm. So I was impressed all around, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I think it had a lot to say about humanity. I think it had a lot to say about politics and and also, like I said again, it about this modern era. I think with social media and all that, that's such a like hot button, talking point, hot topic, and it's usually some really lukewarm takes. And my thing is, I'm like, something has to give. Absolutely something has to give. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be the technology. I don't think it's going to be some way of monitoring or regulating technology. I think we as people have to choose to change. And
yeah, I agree.
We have to stop pretending that people aren't sometimes naked or have sex or, say something stupid at one point in their life. You know what I mean? Right. It's like we have to actually choose what we think, what we believe, who we stand, what we stand for, and who we choose to do that. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely agree. So we have to take some own responsibility for our shit as opposed to trying to lay the blame on everybody else.
Talking about political scandals and stuff, it's like I remember when the I hate calling it the fappening, but that whole incident happened. Yeah. Everybody was like, this is why you don't take naked pictures. I was like, or don't invade people's privacy, or when that can't be helped, don't pretend like you're somehow better than them. Like, don't judge. Right. Don't seek it out. And if you do, then don't be an asshole about it. Like, I mean, it just, we have to be better. We can't mandate people into being better. And I think art like this can help and will help. And I think it's kind of the front line. I think it's the first step to getting to a better place. So
yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that.
I found a way to make this a very important show.
Look at you.
Okay, I don't think I have anything else to say other than I want that trophy.
I want that trophy.
Yeah. Which doesn't even mean anything, technically.
No, it really doesn't. I don't know why that was such a selling point of the trailer, but...
Oh, man. All right. Well, I guess we definitely recommend The Politician, especially if you have any affinity for anyone involved. And then other than that, you can follow us on Twitter at So I'm Watching, Instagram at So I'm Watching This Show. We're also on Facebook and Tumblr, So I'm Watching This Show. I suspect there's going to be a handful of Sufjan Stevens on the Spotify playlist after this episode, so check that out.
At least one.
And then other than that, you can rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or YouTube or CastBox or Spotify or wherever you listen. And that's it for us. Bye.
Oh shit, that was an hour.